From everything I hear in Davos, the mood is very cautious and somber. The only uplifting conversation is around India, and the buzz is huge. One of the challenges with that is that the level of expectation is so high that almost whatever happens is going to fall short. My view on India is that the government is doing a lot, but it's very early days. People have an unrealistic expectation that things will suddenly happen. But I think we have to give them some time, but very hopeful. Just the effort, the thinking, the vision that is being put behind. The one thing in particular that I'm most excited about is the determination the government has shown to use the ordnance route. They have not let one house of parliament hold the country's progress to ransom. And the feature that is most revealing on the ordinance, because eventually it has to get ratified by the House of Parliament. But people who act on the ordinance before the ratification fails or doesn't happen, that is irreversible. So it's not an uncertain ordinance. So if the insurance somebody decides to take a share up to 49 now before the next Parliament session, then that is valid. So it's from a foreign investor point of view, I think they should feel very secure about the ordnance route. I mean, eventually, if in 6 months they can't get the upper house to pass, they can do a joint parliamentary house in which they have a majority. So I think there is every indication that they are certain about what they want to do and they'll get it done. I think the imperative to make in India is absolutely essential, because if you just see our import bill growing, say just in single item of electronics, it could be a massive bill over the next 5-10 years, exceed that of our oil. So I think the need is very important. So I think they have touched on a very important subject. And I think PM Modi is quite determined to make this happen. Having said that, there is a lot of overcapacity in our neighborhood. And, they don't have a big exit market. India is a very attractive market. Currencies are getting devalued in places like Russia, so there's a huge dumping potential, etc. So I think the government will have to find a way of incentivizing Make in India. And for domestic capital to go into Make in India, but also for foreign capital. The foreign capital has one more hurdle, which is the exchange rate concern, because they've seen at every US move, a lot of money go back and the interest rates flare up, etc. And I think for many of them, they will have to think of India not just as a pure domestic market manufacturing center, but actually as a hub for domestic market and import and export, so that they at least partially hedge their exchange risk through natural exports. So I think, it should be appealing, but there is some level of incentivization that will have to be brought in by the government to wean the existing investments from elsewhere into India. So I think if you look at consumption, it could explode. If we have an 8-9% growth, we create more jobs, we have more disposable income on the hands of people. I think everything that is consumption related could really take a big spike. So I would say that category is clearly one large category. It's everything from automobiles to daily use goods, FMCG stuff, everything. I think the other real unmet demand is still housing. I think there's a huge unmet housing, and there's a question of affordability in the big cities, and there are other hurdles in terms of financing cost in the not so big cities. So I think those have to be, over time, we are seeing the interest rates hopefully start in the right direction, and I think something has to be done about affordability in the big cities, I think. So we'll have to see how that works. But I would say consumption is the big one feature is consumption. The government seems quite serious about sorting out the infra, at least the linkage now, the mining situation is being sorted. If the land also gets sorted, the GST gets sorted, I think there'll be a huge amount of growth through that as well. I think this is my 10th year here, and I think the last time India was on a high was around 2009, when people were talking very highly of India having survived the financial crisis, having come out ahead, etc., etc. And since then it's been pretty depressed on India. But this time it's surpassed every previous buzz. So I think, no, India is really back. And this time I think people are talking about India on a much more sustained basis. Clearly there's a lot of it centered around the Modi magic and about the PM and his vision. But there's also a lot of confidence being provided by the Indian business community, which in the past was a mixed signal always. I think this time you're getting a very emphatic push from the Indian industry saying the next 10 years the best place is India. So it's not just politicians speak, it's also the business speak. I think when that comes together, the credibility is much stronger. And you can see from the buzz here, it's all happening. I think it's a fantastic initiative because, first of all, it's such a visible landmark on this main street of Davos that everybody sees it. Clearly, for the people who are either from India or have interest in and around India, find it a very convenient place to lounge and to network. So I think that serves the purpose. It helps a lot that you serve very good Indian cuisine here, and I think that attracts some people as well. But it's just so well located. If at all, there's only one thing I would say is we need to have a bigger space. Just given the crowd and given that the Indian momentum is going to keep strong, I think next year we hope you'll have a bigger space for more and more people to interact.